Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is yes, for sure. Fortnite's going to be a successful game for a long time. People are always going to want that new costume they put out.
I do find it a kind of shitty thing to do. When you're dropping $60 and then you're seeing like, okay, I either have to spend 40 hours to get some of the cool shit, or someone else who makes more money than me can just drop $40 on it, that's kind of bullshit.
Even as we speak, the invasion, the plague, the infection of loot boxes is causing more trouble.
I'm starting to think that we're not going to win this one. The war's over. This is happening, right? There's no stopping it. Like, these are 42% of their revenue.
Welcome to another Video Game Therapy. It's I, Rob, and the topic of today is all about loot boxes and microtransactions. It has popped back up in my mind due to a recent bill that's being proposed. We'll get into that more in a little bit. But the whole idea of the government trying to affect video games as a whole has been done for a while. We can go back to 2010 with the Supreme Court case against violent video games, all the way up to last year's 2018 Hawaiian senator wanting to regulate loot boxes. It's not uncommon to see lawmakers and regulators wanting to shake things up within the industry, whether for the good or for the bad. That's up to you to decide. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I can say that the topic in and of itself of loot boxes and microtransactions have been in the conversations not only within the video games industry, but also just news outlets as a whole, due to video games such as Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Middle-earth Shadow of War. They're kind of the ones who started this whole conversation and why it's such a big deal and why we've been still talking about it to this day. We have video games nowadays that are trying their best to make it clear, look, we don't have microtransactions that affect the game as a whole, just cosmetics. So yes, buy our game. We're seeing things like that with Anthem. We're seeing things like that with a lot of recent games, such as the newest Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. They came out with a statement wanting to make it clear this game has no microtransactions. It's just a game. Enjoy it. Like, it's a thing that you seem like you have to make clear now because of how bad these other games affected the industry as a whole. You need to make sure you separate yourself from those games because they made that big of a dent in the industry. So here we are in 2019, and the war of microtransactions, that's the name of this video. The war on microtransactions is at an all-time high. And the sales in and of itself just keep going up too. It doesn't matter with the bad sour taste in our mouths from Battlefront 2 and Shadow of War. They keep going up. They keep paying money. Consumers keep paying money to microtransactions and loot boxes and cosmetics and game buffs and that kind of stuff. They keep doing it. And so far, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. And we'll get into some numbers in a little bit. Now, like what I said at the beginning of the video, what spawned this was a bill that has been recently proposed by Senator Josh Hawley. And the bill is titled Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act. And its goal is to, quote unquote, protection to games played by minors. On the surface, this does not seem like a bad thing. Seems like it's coming from a very thoughtful, it seems as if just based off of the title, just based off of the goal, if it's coming from a good place, not a bad place. The ramifications of this bill can for sure show catastrophic ends to a lot of companies. I want to just dive into it. So when you go to hawley.senate.gov, you can go there and you can see the act laid out and what it's about. I'm going to read it here with you guys so we can kind of go through it and see exactly what he's trying to say. So, to Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, Senator Hawley's legislation would apply new consumer protections to games played by minors, including games targeted at those under the age of 18. Under the age of 18, you can already think E10 and up, and teen. Any game below M, this is what this is going to apply to. But it doesn't seem as if the ESRB are going to be the ones who are deciding that either. ESRB are the ones who give the ratings of E10 and up, teen, and M. They're the ones when you go on the ESRB website and you go type in a game and it shows the layout as to all the reasons why this game got this rating. It doesn't seem like they're the ones making this decision. It gets up to the COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. It goes on to say, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act will determine by subject matter, visual content, and other indicators similar to those used to determine applicability. And also games with wider audiences whose developers knowingly allow minor players to engage in microtransactions. So far, it just says microtransactions. Wider audiences of minor players. I mean, we're looking at games such as Overwatch, Hearthstone, FIFA, many games like that are going to be affected by this bill. And then they go into a bit more detail. So they got 3 points: loot boxes, pay to win, and enforcement. So first point, loot boxes, microtransactions offering randomized or partially randomized rewards to players. Like I said, Overwatch, Hearthstone, FIFA. You play for a loot box, you don't know what you're going to get, it's randomized. That is going to be affected by this bill. Pay to win, manipulation of a game's progression system, typically by building artificial difficulty or other barriers into game progression to induce players to spend money on microtransactions to advance through content supposedly available to them at no additional cost. So we're talking about games such as Shadow of War, where they had the whole progression system within that to pay for these orcs instead of having to play the game and work your way up to get to that point. Does that make sense? Also, pay to win is also under this act. Manipulation of the competitive balance between players or multiplayer games by allowing players to purchase microtransactions competitive advantages over other players. So we're talking about also games such as Battlefront 2, where you get the game on first day. You don't want to have to play 40 hours to get Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. Just put the $20 down. That's just an example. I don't even know if it was $20. Just put the $20 down. There you go. You got Luke Skywalker. You can go out there and you can be a beast because no one else has Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader. So you have an advantage over everyone else. Now, the enforcement of this. These rules would be enforced by the Federal Trade Commission, which would treat the distribution of such games by publishers and online distributors as an unfair trade practice. And state attorneys general would also be empowered to file suit to defend the residents of their states. Now, if you're watching this and you're wondering, what does this mean? What exactly does this have against video game companies? Is this that big of a deal? Because can this really affect video game companies as a whole? And that's the angle I'm trying to come from. Yes, I understand that loot box systems and pay-to-win microtransactions are bad. Pay-to-win microtransactions as a whole are bad. I'm just going to say it right away. They're bad. I'm not a fan of them. I don't know who's a fan of it. It's just not fun. It takes all the fun away from what video games used to be. When it comes to loot boxes have been around even before video games. Baseball cards are practically loot boxes. Pokemon cards are practically loot boxes. When you go into a little vending machine and you're going to put a quarter in to get a little capsule and you don't know what's going to be in it, but you know what could be in it, that's a loot box right there. These have been around for a good while. I don't see the wrong in taking those away, but they see the wrong in allowing kids to have access to these things and being able to use parents' cards, parents' financial information to be just charging on these games to get this stuff. The question could be brought, are you watching your kid? Are you regulating what they're doing? Do you know what they're playing? Do you know what kind of game they're playing? Do you know that this is even a part of the game? These kind of questions are things that they want to control for parents and not let those within the free market decide for themselves. But this is where we're at. This is the bill. It's proposed. It's not even solidified yet, but it's proposed. So to kind of give an idea as to how much loot boxes actually mean to a company. Back in February of 2018, over half of Activision Blizzard's sales from $7.16 billion were due to microtransactions. Think about that. $7.16 billion. Half of that was all due to microtransactions. Two of their top games, Call of Duty, Overwatch, and many, many more. These games have loot boxes within them. And this is what's powering half of this company. This is what's financially keeping this company afloat. I mean, maybe not afloat, but at least giving them half the revenue they've had in a year. Now, EA, not many people are fans of EA, but it's kind of funny how this works out because back in 2018, they made $5.1 billion. And they stated that their success was found in their leading franchises, including the titles of FIFA, Battlefront, and The Sims. The reason why I bring these numbers up is to show that whether they're done wrong or right, loot boxes and microtransactions make a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. To a degree, if this bill were to go into effect, it can be catastrophic for some developers for sure. Now, if you want to go a little bit further and show that microtransactions as a whole could not be a bad thing, Fortnite in and of itself in 2018 made $3 billion. And that is a system of microtransactions where you know what you're getting, you pay the money, you get it, that's it. It's all cosmetics. It's not pay to win, it's just cosmetics. In a recent interview, Kotaku's Jason Schreier, he asked Josh Hawley if he's spoken with any video game companies on how his bill may impact them. In particular, EA, who relies heavily on loot boxes income that FIFA brings in. Now remember, go back to EA, $5.1 billion, one of their top leading franchises, FIFA. This is what he has to say about that. And FIFA would indeed be covered by this legislation, to be clear. They've certainly expressed their, shall we say, concern over this legislation, but I think that's probably a good indication that we're getting somewhere. Jason went on to ask him, what would you say to a video game company that says, hey, without these things, you're going to cause us to crash, cause this entire industry to fold? Josh replied, these are very resourceful people, and I'm sure they can design games that don't rely on gambling directed at children in the center of the game. Here we are. It's 2019. We have a senator wanting to pass a bill to stop and ban loot boxes and microtransactions. I want to start from the top. Are they going away? No, I don't think they're going to be going away at all. I don't think we're going to see the disappearance of microtransactions from Fortnite or games that do it right. Loot boxes in Overwatch are not going away. Loot boxes in Hearthstone are not going away. I don't see that happening because of the fact that the government has tried so many times. And if you go back, and I want y'all to, if you have the time, go read this interview between Jason Schreier and Hawley. I mean, Jason Schreier even says that there's many times where the government tries to get their hands in things in regards to video games and just nothing ever happens. And I agree. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. It's blown up right now because it's hitting the news and people are want to get on top of it and get all this clicks, but it's not going to go anywhere. But let's just say the bill goes through. Let's play with the idea. What happens if the bill goes through? How much change would we see? And what will happen to a lot of these companies? To the companies that heavily use loot boxes, pay-to-win microtransactions, are for sure going to have to come up with a brand new system to gain money. I've been saying this for a long time. I believe that games like Fortnite have done it correctly. You know what you're getting, pay for it, that's it, there's nothing else. I think there needs to be a model where that is something that's replicated throughout. Pay to win, I think as a whole, should not even exist. But in order for a company to stand, and we've seen numbers of $7.1 billion, $7.16 billion, and $5.1 billion, to see half of their sales being going away from that, and even for EA, that's majority of their sales. To see that go away, you're looking at a crash and a lot of layoffs are going to be happening. And these companies are going to have to start getting creative to not allow this conversation to come back up again because of the fact that something, if it doesn't happen now, something could happen next year or the year after or the year after that. So they have to start working now. They need to start being smart now. And to an extent, and I want to agree with them on the point that they're resourceful people and I'm sure they can design games that don't rely on gambling. To an extent, they kind of can, you know? They kind of can come up with an idea that can totally just negate microtransactions and loot boxes. Make a game that's done with microtransactions right, like Fortnite. We need to see games start adopting that practice. Now, I will say that I've had my frustrations with games like Overwatch in the past, where they're introducing these skins that are very nice, but you don't even know if you're going to get it. If the dream of just being able to go and be like, all right, $10, boom, give me that skin, that's it. They probably, very much so, they're just going to get their money either way. I don't think that they need to keep this idea of the randomized thing happening all the time. It's hard for me to even say that because I kind of even want to walk that back because I think of certain games like Hearthstone where it's very much so a thing that's a part of the game. It's how it works. But I believe we live in a new era where we don't need 100% of the randomized stuff anymore. I think we live in an era where people want to know what they're getting themselves into or what they're going to buy, and that's it. Whether it's fun or not, maybe not the expense of the consumer's wallet. So my closing thoughts on this whole thing. Again, is the bill going to get passed? My opinion, no. We'll see. I'll be back in this chair if it does pass. This would be very interesting if it actually does. We'll see a very different industry from here on out. But I want to see this whole thing that's going on right now start lighting a fire under the companies that heavily rely on this stuff to start getting creative, start implementing better systems within their games. I want to be able to jump into Overwatch and buy that Widowmaker skin like I want to, like that. or Call of Duty and other skins, and just games all throughout. We need to see it change up because it is a bit scheming, and there's no other way around it. Underneath all the bright colors and the fun characters, there is a scheme underneath it, and they want money. But I think they need to go back and remember about and think about the consumers at the very beginning of it all. Those are my closing thoughts. This is a long video. I'm sorry about that. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this whole ordeal on the war of microtransactions. If you are for the bill, let me know in the comments down below. If you're against it, I also want to know as well. I want to have a conversation with you guys down below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And I'll see you guys next time, because I'm working on my next video being on the state of video games, to see where we're at now and what the future holds for video game consoles and video games in the years ahead. So next time, you guys have yourself a nice day.